Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline is the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, Tom Dundon. Tom, we appreciate the time. Last time we talked to you, we had radio equipment. The Stadium Series was going on. You now join us on our podcast adventures.
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you guys figured out a medium. Is that the right word? Medium?
Yeah, medium. Yeah, platform. We're figuring it out as we go along, man. I kind of feel the same way with you as an owner of a professional sports franchise. I'm curious the progression of taking over the team, building a team, understanding this window that you have, and just the way this series played out. I'm not saying that you didn't feel the previous exits any more or less, but I felt like this one hit a little bit different because of the close nature of everything and how you got to this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to remember, right? It always feels shitty to lose. I feel terrible in a regular season game. So, but I agree with you. I think it was worse, but I don't know if it's just because it was more recent, and mostly probably because, over the years, as we've gotten better, your expectations start to change, and our expectations are probably ahead of our results right now, where I think it was the opposite of that in the beginning.
Hurricanes owner Tom Dundon joining us here on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. And you look at the way that the series unfolded, Tom, and I thought the big question going into it was in goal, and your goalie was outstanding. And you look at the other side, he was pretty good. And then you look at some of the goals that were scored by the other team. It's almost like, I'm not trying to give you any excuses, and I you don't want any, but looking back at it, and I know Rod said it, like 4 games all decided by a goal. It just didn't feel like, certainly didn't feel like a sweep. It certainly looked a whole lot closer than 4 games to none, too.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the hard part about. That's the thing I struggle with hockey, and it's kind of like when I talked to you guys a month or two ago. The odds don't move very much, right? Once you're in the spot we're in, your outcome is so based on luck, right? Hitting a bunch of posts when you get a call, and I don't think, if you go back and look at where the shots all came from and how often they happen, which is the only way to really judge hockey over time, I think you'd be pretty happy if you just saw those 4 games play out with those opportunities, then you would take that. And the probability that we would lose all 4 of those games, given how we played and where the opportunities for both teams came from, it's against all odds. And that's, I think, the most frustrating thing is you can go back and say, how do we get better? And there's always places to get a little better, but there's not as many as you would hope when you lose 4 games in a row. You would hope that we could go identify a problem. And the problem is just, you only play 4 games, and sometimes you hit the post when the goal's wide open, and sometimes they get one chance and win. And that's going to happen. It's why we're trying to make sure we're good every year. It's why we don't want to put, like what happened to Boston. I think they have to feel as bad or worse because they had this super team that I was really impressed with what they built. And but some of the decisions they made are for this year, and we try not to do that, right? We're trying to give ourselves a great chance every year, and I think this is why. It's because you can't control some of the things that actually affect the outcome a lot more than the decisions we make. Any one decision doesn't help your team that much. 20 of them help a lot, if that makes sense.
Tom Dundon, owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, joining us here on Ovies and Giglio on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. So that gets me to, I guess we can kind of look back and then look forward as you try to address some needs this offseason or look at contracts and go in different directions. When we talked to you at the Stadium Series, I think Giglio and I were both kind of pushing on, hey, go make a move, right? You had $10 million in cap space. You looked how the rest of the East was playing out. You see some of the moves in New York. You mentioned Boston, et cetera. And do you feel justified? You told us, like, no, we don't want to mortgage the future. We like our group. This is a window that we want to keep going. Do you feel somewhat justified with the way things played out? Not in how you got to the Eastern Conference Finals, but how the rest of the playoffs sorted out as well.
Not necessarily. I mean, look, we try to make some moves. There's been a number of really good players move teams the last couple of years, and I'm aware of what we did and why we didn't end up with some of those players. And so I don't have any regrets on any of the deals. I can tell you that, like where we got to and the decisions other teams made. What people don't realize, I think, when you're not in it every day, is you could have an asset that's worth more than someone else's asset in our mind. But if the need or the decision that someone else is making is based on short-term or long-term or position need, or, there's all these other variables. But we don't go after assets worth $1 and offer 80 cents. If an asset's worth $1, we're going to offer the dollar. And if it's worth more than $1, we'll pay more. And so, I don't have any regrets about any of the decisions we made, because we don't control both sides of the transaction. And I think we've always felt like if we didn't get a deal that we really wanted, it was because our fit was wrong. Now, look, you throw Aho or Svechnikov or Slavin out there, we're not doing that. But if you take out some of those things, we're pretty aggressive, and we just didn't do certain things. But and candidly, if you look at what happened, I'm not sure. We played a couple of those games where they were in a very high percentile of games we've played in the last 5 years, and games that you should win 70, 80, 90% of the time. And we didn't. And, what are you going to do about that, right? You can't think one player was going to make you play better than a game that was better than all the games you've been playing, right?
Sure.
It's easy to have a different judgment after you have more information, right? But I try to look at where we were when we made the decisions.
Okay, so about that, you've mentioned probability a bunch, chances, the chaos, the organized chaos that the playoffs can be. So I kind of get the sense that some of the offseason discussion that we've had, I know Luke DeCock and I and Giglio just talked about this on the previous show, about offseason needs being maybe not something that's analytically something you're looking for, but more feel, something more sandpapery, more bunch of jerks, somebody that's willing to take a little extra step beyond the whistle that we see happens to the Canes, something to respond. How do you kind of view those discussions when you talk to Rod Brindamore, when you talk to Don Waddell about needs in that regard?
Look, the first thing we did when I got here is we traded for that Michael Furland, who was probably one of the two toughest guys in the league, and he could play. No one's going to convince me to make our team worse. I'm not going to do it. But if we can get tougher and better, we clearly want to do that, right? We all feel the same, right? No one wants to be bullied. We all feel the same when you look at something and you say, why did that happen? But I look back on Svetch's hit on Lindholm last year, and I'm not sure that they weren't tough, right? It was just he was in a vulnerable position. So I probably don't look at any one or two situations and think someone's going to come in here and save the world and make us all tougher. I think we all have to do it. And, I would love to have any player be tougher who also is good. And so I don't think we really have a disagreement on that organizationally. We'd all like to be tougher. I don't know that it matters as much as everybody else does. I mean, the truth is, I thought there are a number of times where probably some of the toughness in that series went uncalled that could have had a big impact. And if that stuff gets called, now we're sitting here talking about lack of discipline and some of those different things. And so I'd like to see the NHL continue to refine how they call things. And I think that's a better strategy than just, vigilante justice. I don't think that's really what I want.
I feel like you don't like it when I agree with you, but I'm going to have to do it anyway. Because when we talked to you during the Stadium Series, I thought, all right, you seemed eager to kind of push this team in a direction, not only because of what you had, but because, again, I think you and I are on the same page in terms of what was in the bracket. that it was open up, that this was a chance to win this thing. This was a chance to put your name on the cup. I don't think you didn't understand that, right? But I think where you were right, and it's kind of hard pill to swallow, and that is Florida made their moves in the offseason, which is what you're talking about right now, like the fit and being able to get a guy and add a guy at what price at the deadline. Like it's a really hard tightrope to walk. So I wonder if there is any consolation in the fact that Florida's offseason move kind of proves how you're going about some of these decisions to build your hockey team and put them in the right position to win this thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, Boston probably should have won that first series, and if they do, then we're having a very different conversation, right? But same thing happened is Florida's a really good team. They've been on the best teams for a long time, but they probably have had some things go their way. And there's never been a team, very rarely does the very best team win, right? Like it happens every X years. I don't know how often, but it doesn't happen that often that the actual best team wins. And I always look at it like if you play 1,000 games, who would win? And if that team doesn't win the cup, do you want to copy the team that would have won the most games out of 1,000 or the team that won a tournament that's a little more random? It's a really tough thing to do. And when the tough team wins, you want to get tougher. And when the power play team wins, you want a better power play. And when the team that wins the trade deadline wins, you say, I should have done more. And so I don't know that we're right or wrong. I just know that the cost to rent a player, usually, I think the reason the deadline's interesting is if you're not sure you're a playoff team, then once you know you're getting in and you're a fringe team, you can get better. With a team like ours that's 110, 100 whatever point team, it's really hard to get better, right? The marginal improvement. If you think about how many 125 point teams have you seen in the NHL? So if we're throwing a 112 point team out there every year, the incremental value of another good player is much smaller for us than the 94 point team who is 12 points behind us. I mean, Connor McDavid's probably worth 5 points, 6 points, right? So now I got to go.
So, yeah.
Yeah. But it feels like he's worth more than that, right?
Yeah.
But if a average or bad team's getting 80, 85 points, first of all, there's no bad teams, right? They're all in the NHL. But relative to the league, if an 85 point team's not making the playoffs and a 105 point team's really, really good, you got to figure out how to move it. And so I want to make sure that we win, that we are high probability to make the playoffs every year, because then you get into this, tell me who gets the call, who gets the power play, who gets the timely goal, who gets, when they talk about hot goalies, it frustrates me because when you hit a bunch of posts, then it becomes same thing with our goalies. Our goalies could be good or bad by 3 inches, right? So if you lose and the goalie gives up 2 extra goals, he might not have done anything wrong. And so it's really hard to make decisions off of things that are random.
I feel like with all this talk of probability, I want you and Giglio to play poker. I want to see how that would play out. Giglio, when's the last time? Well, I was going to say, you're probably listening to Tom talk about all these probabilities and going, I'm never going to that sports book in the arena. There's no way. The house is absolutely always going to win based on this conversation.
So this is the problem, though, because I don't gamble because I don't like the idea that the odds aren't in my favor. I can't function like that. Like, it makes me unhappy.
That makes sense.
I mean, can you impart that?
Well,
that's gambling.
I don't trade stocks either because I know. No, hell no.
Really?
No, I don't have an advantage.
What, you got a money tree?
Huh? I work. You got to do stuff. I work.
All right.
What?
Speaking,
there's no shortcuts.
Come on. This is not bode well for what we're trying to do here. I'm trying to do SEO and trying to increase the odds and how many people are going to watch things. Obviously, you helped by joining us here on this podcast initiative, so we appreciate that. Speaking of the sports book, I know this week, as of this recording, the mobile sports wagering bill is continuing to go through the NCGA. Where are you on what's going on? Any sort of opinions as to how these things have played out? Do you just want it to happen and then we can go from there? Where are you on this right now?
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of people are working hard on this, and I appreciate everybody what they're doing. Like, I look at the sports gambling as entertainment, right? It's fun. Um, I and I think that's why, you guys have jobs. That's what we're all looking to do, right? You work hard so you can then go enjoy your life and do
Yeah.
things. So I'm hopeful that this all works, but I'm just waiting like everybody else. I mean, there's some people that are working on it, and I've talked to a few folks, and um, it looks promising the way I understand it. But when it's done, there's a lot of work to do, and we want to do something pretty neat at the arena and have a big sports book and make it fun. But we can't do it until we know.
I was going to say, what is the turnaround for you if it is passed in this session and they say January 1st? Would you be in position by the next hockey season to have something at the arena, or is that something that needs to be worked on and presented for the following year?
Yeah, whenever you can take your first bet, usually I assume what would happen is it would happen in a more temporary facility kind of way. And then the big thing that we have in our mind as part of the overall entertainment district, that takes planning, and you're probably a couple years out from that. And it goes hand in hand with renovating the arena and developing the area. You wouldn't want, you don't want orphans, right? You don't want something that's there that doesn't have other commerce, right? There has to be more than just one thing out there, or it wouldn't do very well.
Does that feel like, do you have a timetable in your head for some of those renovations? I know we've seen plans and we've argued over parking spots and parking decks and some other things, but is that, now that you have a week of your off season, have you already been blueprints and everything else that's already done?
Yeah, I mean, we're waiting to find out if it's all going to get approved. Like, there's a lot of constituents here, and I think we're ready with a pretty thoughtful start, and then it just becomes what's approved, right? What are we able to do? And I think it's really fun. It's interesting. I think it'll be more than anyone can imagine. It's a yes or no now, right? And that's not they're not giving me the vote.
That's the Centennial Authority when you say approval, or is it something beyond that?
Well, we have to work with NC State. Obviously, they're our partners in all this, and then you have the Centennial Authority, the city, the county, the state part. I think there's more complexities here than I probably understand, but it feels like there's a lot of work being done towards that end, and I think before the season starts, we'll know.
Easier decisions for you, Tom. What do you do with your roster this offseason? And, you got Jordan Stahl, obviously, on the top of that list. I would imagine your captain. What do you do with him? And then in goal, you guys actually made a pretty smart move with Kochetkov to get him under the contract that he's under. But do you feel comfortable, turning this thing over to him? And those are just, two of the big ones that come off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan's one of a group of players that it's our hope that only plays here. And so, yeah, he's a pretty big priority. And I can't imagine a scenario where we don't get that done. Look, we have a really good team. And I think right now we're planning on trying to bring everybody back and extend everybody for the most part. People that have 1 year left that we're able to extend. And so that's what Don's working on. But, we're really happy with everyone. And so if they want to come back and we can fit it, for us, we're going to spend to the cap. We've actually spent over the cap with LTIR every year. And it's just making sure that we don't have to end our ability to make the playoffs with high degree of probability, plus have a chance to win, by making decisions that someday we're going to have to pay for. So as long as we can come up with a fair compromise with everybody, I think I hope it's going to look a lot the same.
When you say extend, and forgive my ignorance here, you have obviously a couple of guys, Pesci, Aho, with a year left that I would think would be building blocks here. Do you have to compartmentalize each of those years the way that I look at the salary cap on, the sport track over here? or are you looking at it when you say extend? Are you talking about some of those bigger pieces with Pesci and Aho?
Yeah. So Aho, Pesci, Shea have a year left, and we can extend their Chatfield. We could extend Jarvis. We can extend all those contracts now. And then you have Foss, Stahl. We don't love the idea of people going into the last year. I think Teravainen's got 1 year left. So if we can get things done a year early, what we've tried to do, and it hasn't worked that often, but what we've tried to do is look at that last year and say, what is the risk for the player? What's the risk for the team? And if we know when you have a player and you know you like them and you know they fit and you know they work hard, to me, that's better than going out to the market. When you're trading for a player, somebody else has decided to give that player up. If you're signing a player, someone's decided not to sign them. And there's some amount of risk with that. And sometimes it works wonderful. And you're really fortunate with the guy you trade for. And then sometimes you find out that they knew more than you. And, you know, that risk isn't one I love taking if you're happy with what you've got. So for us, it's really just finding the right term and money to make it work for everybody.
At the risk of bringing up old contentions, does the negotiation with Aho last time have any effect on the negotiation with Aho this time?
Not at all. I mean, I was happy for him, you know, like if you know the kid and you know these people, if you separate the Hurricanes and what is best for the Hurricanes, and then you look at an individual who it worked out for, I think I never once was mad at Sebastian. I was so appreciative that we got it done and that he was here, and he's been unbelievable, right? Like, so yeah, it's irrelevant. You know, maybe he'll look at it and realize hopefully we were fair and hopefully he sees the way we treated him and knows he wants to be here. And maybe that comes into account when we're going through this, but I don't think he owes us anything because look how he's played, right? And look at the person he is and the leader he is. So you know, it's a new deal now, and he's going to be here. He ain't playing anywhere else, right? Like that's the goal.
All right.
Yeah. So
we've marked the recording.
Yes.
That's good. We've marked the recording. We'll keep that on file. Tom Dundon, owner of the Carolina Hurricanes. We'll close on this. When's the next outdoor game scheduled? We have that on the books yet? Have you hit up Bettman for the next one?
Yeah. I think what's going to happen is if we get the renovations and all that done, and that's a pretty big commitment from the city and the state and the county, that as part of that long-term lease, we'd like to have some things agreed to from the NHL. But that's, you know, I think we have to go first on our side. Here's what the new vision is. And then I bet we have a better chance of getting some of those dates locked in than we would if we just go now and say, I mean, imagine how the other teams would feel if a year later you had one. So I think we need a little bit of cooling off time, but yeah, we're not going for drafts and all-star games. We're going to I think we talked about this last time. We're going to just focus on outdoor game. I think outdoor game fits our market and what we want to do.
So no all-star game? I mean, the draft I get, but no interest in the all-star game? Because that was a pretty fun event when it was here.
Yeah. No, I think having that stadium right there, and I don't know, just I'd rather do something, focus on something, do it really well, and know it's going to be great than, I don't know, the All-Star game. It's not really really something.
That's fair. And now that you've done it, you know it needs to be fixed, which, you know, obviously we've discussed that post outdoor game, and with the renovations, that'll all be part of fixing a lot of those things. Tom, we appreciate it.
Better.
Oh, well, yeah. Well,
put my guy Joey Doster in charge of the parking, will you?
Look, a big part of it, just so you know, I think you're going to find traffic and parking gets way better if we can pull this off. Way better, because it's like I'm just obsessive about certain things, and that's the thing of all this stuff. That's the thing that I want fixed, because, you know, my whole background was always, you know, when people want to give you money, like when I see lines or people coming to spend their money and we're making it hard, I find that incredibly insane and stupid. And so we're going to make it easy as it can be. It's hard to get 6,000 cars somewhere. but it should be easier than it is right now.
I don't think you're getting any disagreement from us on that one, especially given 20 some odd years of trying to get in and out of that parking lot for a variety of events. And Tom, we appreciate it as always. I'm sure we'll catch up this off season and getting into next season. Again, appreciate the time.
All right. Good luck, guys. Thank you.